The rain had turned the dirt streets of Red Willow into mud, the kind that clung to boots and secrets alike. Benjamin Carter stood beneath the overhang of the sheriff's office, his deputy badge dull in the gray light, watching the storm roll through town. He had the uneasy feeling that trouble always arrived, with weather like this quiet at first, then sudden and unforgiving. Inside, the sheriff's office was tense. A woman sat stiffly on a wooden chair near the desk, her hands folded in her lap as though holding herself together by sheer will. Her dress was plain, travel-worn, and damp at the hem. Dark hair escaped from its pin at her neck, curling softly against her cheek. She looked exhausted, but her eyes sharp alert, frightened tracked every movement in the room. "That's her," the sheriff muttered under his breath. "Ella Monroe. Witness to the McKinnon killing." Benjamin's jaw tightened. He'd heard of the murder railroad money stolen, a man shot dead behind the saloon, and now whispers of a powerful gang hunting down anyone who could testify. Witnesses didn't last long in cases like this. Ella stood when she noticed Benjamin watching her. "Are you the one they said would help me?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it. Benjamin tipped his hat. "Deputy Benjamin Carter, and yes, ma'am, I'm here." The sheriff cleared his throat. "We've got a problem. Word's already spread. McKinnon's men are sniffing around town. If she stays here, she won't make it to morning." Ella's fingers curled into her skirt. "I told the truth," she said quietly. "I just want to live long enough for it to matter." Benjamin felt something stir in his chest. Anger, resolve, maybe both. "I've got a cabin north of here," he said. "Miles from town, no neighbors. She can hide there." The sheriff frowned. Too obvious. A lone woman showing up with a deputy. "They'll follow," Benjamin thought fast. His cabin was remote, but not invisible. Anyone watching him would notice if he suddenly rode out every night. Then an idea formed, reckless, dangerous, and the only one that might work. "She won't be a witness," Benjamin said slowly. "Not out there. She'll be my wife." The room went silent, save for the rain tapping against the windows. Ella's eyes widened. "Your wife. Pretend," Benjamin added quickly, though the word felt thin. "Just until this blows over. Folks won't question a married man taking his wife home. And out there, she'll be safer." The sheriff studied him for a long moment. "You're sure about this, son?" Benjamin nodded once. "I am." Ella searched his face, as if weighing her life against the stranger standing before her. Finally, she let out a slow breath. "If this is what it takes, I'll do it." An hour later, they rode out of Red Willow together, the storm easing as dusk fell. Ella sat side-saddle behind Benjamin, her hands resting lightly against his coat. He was keenly aware of her presence, too aware of the warmth of her body and the quiet strength she carried despite her fear. They hadn't spoken much on the ride, but when the cabin finally came into view, small, weathered, tucked among pine and stone, Ella broke the silence. "Thank you," she said softly, "for risking this." Benjamin dismounted and helped her down. "This isn't just a hiding place," he replied. "It's a promise. As long as you're here, no one touches you." She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for a fleeting moment, the lie they were about to live felt dangerously close to the truth. And neither of them realized how real it would soon become. The cabin sat in silence, surrounded by towering pines, whose shadows stretched long in the fading light. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and pine resin, a comforting scent that belied the danger lingering just beyond the forest. Benjamin set down his saddle, wiping rain from his coat, while Ella hung her damp cloak on a hook near the door. "This will be home for a while," Benjamin said, trying to make his voice sound casual, though his eyes never left her. "We'll need to keep quiet, keep the fire low. If anyone follows us here, we won't see them until it's too late." Ella nodded, her fingers brushing the wooden table. "I never imagined hiding like this, in someone else's home, pretending to be." "Married," she trailed off, unsure of how to say the words that made her heart race. Benjamin's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's temporary. Just long enough to stay alive." But even as he said it, he felt the weight of the lie pressing down on him. Pretending to be her husband meant close quarters, shared meals, nights under the same roof. It would test his control, and he feared it might blur the lines between pretense and something more dangerous. That night, Benjamin built a fire, while Ella prepared a meager supper from the supplies he had brought. They ate in silence, each bite punctuated by the occasional crackle of burning wood. He watched her carefully, noting the subtle ways she moved, the careful way she poured water, the faint tremor in her hands when she thought he wasn't looking. Afterward, Ella lingered by the window, peering into the forest. "Do you think they'll come here?" she asked quietly. Benjamin joined her, standing close enough that the heat from the fire behind them seemed to radiate between them. "They'll try, but out here, we've got the advantage. I know every trail, every hidden path. They won't find you unless I let them." Ella glanced at him, gratitude, and something else, something warmer flickering in her gaze. "I don't know how I'd survive without you," she admitted. He felt a tightening in his chest. He wanted to reach for her, to brush the damp hair from her face, but he held himself back. They were bound by necessity, not choice, and he couldn't let a moment's weakness ruin everything. For days, the cabin became their world. Benjamin patrolled the surrounding woods, always alert, while Ella kept to the cabin, organizing supplies and maintaining a semblance of domesticity. They fell into a rhythm. Firewood in the morning, quiet afternoons reading or mending clothes, and evenings spent talking in hushed tones about anything but the danger waiting outside. Yet, with each shared meal and quiet conversation, the pretense of marriage began to feel less like a role and more like a reality neither dared to acknowledge. Benjamin found himself lingering when she walked across the room, noticing how her presence filled the cabin more than any fire ever could. And Ella, once so cautious and guarded, found comfort in his steady presence, the certainty of his protection creating a fragile sense of home. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the treetops, Benjamin finally broke the silence. "Ella, I know we're only pretending, but I need you to know, I'm not pretending everything I feel." Her breath caught. She turned to him, eyes wide and searching, and for a heartbeat, the forest outside and the dangers beyond vanished. The cabin felt smaller, the fire warmer, and the lie between them, a fragile thread holding something very real. Benjamin stepped closer, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. "I can't promise I'll ever stop worrying about you. Not here, not ever." Ella swallowed hard, her heart racing. "Then, maybe we don't have to pretend all the time." For a moment, neither moved, the world narrowing to the small, dimly lit cabin, the unspoken truths pressing close. Outside, the shadows of the pines stretched long, hiding threats they would soon have to face, but inside, a different kind of danger lingered. One born of closeness, desire, and a secret neither had planned for. The line between fake and real was beginning to blur, and neither Benjamin nor Ella could tell where pretense ended and where love began. The morning mist hung heavy over the forest, turning the pines into ghostly sentinels as Benjamin patrolled the perimeter of the cabin. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made his hand twitch toward the rifle slung across his back. Red Willow was miles away, but the McKinnon gang had a reputation for persistence, and he knew they wouldn't give up easily. Inside, Ella moved quietly, tending to the small chores that made the cabin feel like a home, sweeping, cooking, and stacking firewood. Despite the danger, she felt a strange comfort in the routine. The cabin was small, yes, but it was theirs for now. Benjamin returned to the cabin just as the sun began to break through the fog. His coat was damp from the morning dew, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the trees as if they might conceal a hidden threat. Any sign of them, Ella asked softly, setting a kettle on the stove. Nothing yet, he replied, though his jaw was tight. But they'll come. They always do. Ella's gaze dropped to the floor. I'm scared, she admitted. Every creak in the woods. I feel like they're right outside. Benjamin stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. You're not alone, he said firmly. I promised I'd keep you safe, and I will. For a moment, the tension between them dissolved, replaced by the warmth of proximity. Benjamin wanted to reach out, to pull her into his arms, but he resisted. The stakes were too high. Not yet. That evening, as they sat by the fire, the wind howled through the trees, and a sudden pounding at the cabin door made them both jump. Benjamin grabbed his rifle, his heart hammering in his chest. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice low but steady. Ella's hands trembled as she stepped back, clutching the edge of the table. Who is it? She whispered. Benjamin approached the door cautiously, rifle raised. Show yourself, he called. The pounding stopped. Silence. Then a gruff voice came from outside. Benjamin Carter, we know you're in there. Benjamin's pulse quickened. Ella, stay back. Don't open the door for anyone. The gang had found them sooner than he expected. He scanned the surrounding trees through the window, noting the shadows of men moving stealthily. The odds were against them. They would have to fight, hide, or trick their way out fast. Then, inspiration struck. Benjamin turned to Ella. We need to make them believe this cabin is abandoned or that I'm not here. Ella's eyes widened. How? Follow my lead, he said, motioning for her to stay calm. They moved quickly, extinguishing the fire and hiding the few signs of life. Blankets folded. Dishes put away, the kettle emptied. Every small action was a piece of the deception that might save them. When the gang finally entered the cabin, expecting an easy capture, they found nothing. Just cold walls, shadows dancing across empty corners, and silence that felt like a trap. Benjamin watched them from the hidden loft above, heart pounding. One man cursed, another kicked the floorboards. But none could find him or Ella. It was a temporary victory, but a victory nonetheless. That night, after the gang had retreated, Benjamin and Ella sat in the darkened cabin, catching their breath. Ella's hand found his, a silent gesture of gratitude and fear intertwined. Benjamin, we can't stay hidden forever, she said quietly. They'll come back. I know, he replied, squeezing her hand. But as long as I'm here, I'll fight them off. We'll survive this together. The words lingered in the air, heavier than any rifle. The pretense of marriage had brought them close. But now the danger outside was forcing them to confront something more real inside. Ella leaned against him, and for the first time, Benjamin allowed himself a flicker of hope. Hope that when the danger passed, they might still have each other. But neither of them could know how close the next attack would come, or how much it would test their hearts. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, but the forest seemed heavier somehow, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Benjamin had patrolled the perimeter before sunrise, every sense alert. He hadn't slept. Wealthy, pounding at the cabin door from the previous night, replayed in his mind. Inside, Ella moved quietly, tying her hair back and preparing a simple breakfast. She tried to focus on mundane tasks, but her thoughts kept drifting to Benjamin, his steady presence, the way he had protected her, and the warmth in his eyes that she could no longer dismiss. Benjamin returned, brushing dew from his coat. He had been watching the trails, noting footprints and broken twigs that hinted the gang might be returning sooner rather than later. He didn't speak at first, instead sitting beside Ella at the table. Their hands brushed briefly, and an unspoken tension hummed between them, heavier than any rifle or threat outside. Ella, he began, but stopped. The words lodged in his throat. How could he tell her what he felt without risking everything? Their safety, the pretense, the fragile trust between them. Ella met his gaze, reading the hesitation. Benjamin, we can't ignore this anymore, she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. This pretending, It's getting too real. Benjamin's heart clenched. He wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, to tell her that every thought of hers had been on his mind for days. He swallowed hard. I feel the same way, Ella. More than I should, maybe. But I can't risk losing you. Not now, not ever. Before they could speak further, a sharp crack split the air. Both of them froze, eyes darting to the window. Outside, shadows moved through the trees, too many to count, armed men intent on finding them. The McKinnon gang had returned, more determined than ever. Benjamin grabbed his rifle, and Ella instinctively ducked behind the table. "Stay low," he ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. "We're not letting them take you." The cabin erupted into chaos. The gang fired through the windows, bullets splintering the wooden walls. Benjamin returned fire, keeping them at bay as he maneuvered behind cover. Ella's heart pounded in her chest, fear twisting into a fierce determination to survive. She grabbed a heavy iron pot, ready to strike if anyone came close. In the midst of the fight, Benjamin's eyes met hers. Despite the terror and the violence, there was a moment of connection, a reminder of the bond they had forged in this cabin. They were more than deputy and witness, more than a fake husband and wife. They were a team, each willing to risk everything for the other. Hours passed like minutes. The gang, frustrated and bloodied, eventually retreated, leaving the cabin battered but standing. Benjamin checked the perimeter, then returned to Ella, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You okay?" he asked, voice rough with exhaustion. "I am. Because of you," she whispered, burying her face in his coat. "I don't care about pretending anymore. I don't want to hide my feelings." Benjamin's hand stroked her hair, and for the first time, the pretense of marriage dissolved entirely. "Then don't," he said. "Not now. Not ever." They held each other as the sun dipped below the horizon. The danger momentarily passed, but the emotions between them burning brighter than any threat outside. In that cabin, amidst shadows and gunfire, Ella and Benjamin realized that the lie that had started as protection had become something real, something worth fighting for, beyond survival itself. Outside, the forest was still, but inside, their hearts no longer pretended. The morning sun filtered through the pine trees, casting golden light on the cabin and warming the worn wooden floorboards. Benjamin moved quietly, checking the traps and clearing the surrounding area. The previous night's attack had left them both exhausted, but the memory of it made him sharper, more determined than ever to protect Ella. Ella emerged from the bedroom, brushing the damp strands of hair from her face. Her eyes met Benjamin's, and for a brief moment, words weren't necessary. The fear, the tension, and the danger outside had drawn them closer than any pretense ever could. Benjamin handed her a small breakfast of bread and coffee, and they ate in silence, savoring the peace that seemed so fragile. Then, as if on cue, the crunch of boots on forest debris shattered the calm. The gang had returned, more organized and ruthless than before. "Get behind me," Benjamin said, loading his rifle. Ella obeyed, moving behind the table, heart racing. "We've got to finish this, once and for all." The gang advanced, but Benjamin had anticipated them. He led Ella through the hidden trapdoor he had prepared days earlier, guiding her into the small tunnel beneath the cabin that led to the creek on the far side. Bullets splintered the cabin walls, and the sounds of shouting and gunfire echoed above them. "Benjamin, what about the cabin?" Ella asked, panic rising. "It's a distraction," he replied, voice low and steady. "Our goal is to survive. Stay close to me." They emerged near the creek, wet and muddy, but hidden from view. Benjamin scanned the tree line and saw the gang moving toward the cabin, thinking the deputies were trapped inside. He took a deep breath and whispered, "We have the upper hand now. Let's finish this." With careful coordination, Benjamin led Ella in a counterattack, using the forest as cover. The gang, unprepared for the sudden ambush, faltered. Benjamin's sharp aim and Ella's quick reflexes throwing rocks to distract and confuse turned the tide. One by one, the gang members retreated, beaten and demoralized. Finally, the forest fell silent. Benjamin lowered his rifle, chest heaving, and looked at Ella. She was covered in mud and scratches, but her eyes sparkled with relief and triumph. "You okay?" he asked, pulling her close. Ella laughed softly, a sound that mingled relief and joy. "Better than I've ever been," she admitted. "Because I'm with you." Benjamin tilted her chin up, eyes locking on hers. "No more pretending," he said. "I don't want to hide what I feel anymore." Ella's lips curved into a smile. "Neither do I." He leaned down, and for the first time kissed her, not as a pretense, not as a tactic, but as a declaration of something real and unshakable. The forest, the cabin, and the dangers they had faced all faded into the background. It was just the two of them, hearts aligned, a love forged in fire and shadow. Days later, as they packed the cabin for a return to Red Willow, Benjamin and Ella walked hand in hand through the sun-drenched forest, knowing that nothing could separate them, not the law, not danger, not even fear itself. Their bond had survived the storm, the shadows, and the threats outside, and had emerged stronger than either had imagined. And though the town might never know the story of the Lawman's Safehouse, Benjamin and Ella did. A fake marriage had turned into real love, born of courage, trust, and the fires they had survived together. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.